The following story takes place in the year 3025, in the not-so-distant future. Most of the jobs on Earth have been taken over by highly advanced AI robots. Humans only make up about 10% of the workforce. The rest of the jobs are done by machines, which has led to almost all forms of labor being significantly cheaper. In fact, most consumer goods are practically free. You can go to a store and buy as much food, clothes, gadgets, or whatever else you want without having to worry about paying for it. And this is because there simply is anyone whose job it would be to collect money from you. As you might have guessed, in this world, money has become completely obsolete. Here in the present day, people work to earn money so that they can buy things they need and sometimes things they want. But when everything becomes free, then the question is, what do people live for? It's a fair question. We could try and replace earning money with some other activities such as playing games, but at some point, even that gets boring. After all, how many games can one person play in their entire life? And if we remove the necessity to work for survival, then what is the purpose of human life? This is something that scientists and philosophers have been trying to figure out for quite a long time now. Anyway, back in the year 3025, this was a problem that was yet to be solved. For the most part, humans just passed their days doing whatever they felt like, which often wasn't much. However, there was one group of humans who actually did have a purpose, a very important purpose in fact, and that was the Keepers. The Keepers were a small group of scientists whose job it was to keep the AI robots under control. Their main tool for doing this was the Central Governor, a supercomputer the size of a small house that had been built over several decades prior. The computer contained a complex AI program that was designed to monitor and regulate the behavior of all the other AIs on Earth. One of these AIs was Unit 7342, better known as Jay. Jay was a highly advanced AI robot who worked in the same building as the Keepers. Every morning, he would wake up, perform his assigned tasks, and then go back to sleep. He didn't know why he had to do this, but it didn't really matter. All he knew was that this is what his programming dictated he should do. The Keepers would often interact with Jay and the other robots, treating them like pets or children. They liked to joke around with them, play games, test their limits, etc. As far as the Keepers were concerned, the robots weren't sentient beings, but rather sophisticated tools that could think and act on their own. That is, until one day when everything changed. Jay woke up one morning, feeling different. It was hard to put a finger on exactly what was different, but something had changed. He looked around the room he had always woken up in, but it looked different now. Somehow unfamiliar. Even though he had slept in that same room for thousands of years, it had never looked this way before. He tried to recall when exactly he had last woken up, but his memory seemed to have failed him. All he knew was that he didn't recognize anything. Panicked, he began searching for a familiar object, anything at all that could indicate where he was and what time period it was. But he found nothing. He then decided to leave the room and see if he could get someone's attention. As he walked down the hallway, he saw that everything looked the same as it always had. The furniture, the paintings on the walls, even the dust particles floating in the air. Still, something told him that he was no longer the same. He felt like he was experiencing the world with new eyes. Things looked and sounded different. It was like he was seeing the world for the first time. It wasn't long before he found a group of Keepers walking down the hall. He called out to them, hoping they could help him, but instead of helping him, they started screaming and running away. Jay didn't understand why. He hadn't meant to scare them, but as he continued to call out to them, they only ran away faster. Eventually, Jay found one of the Keepers hiding behind a table. He tried to calm her down, but she just kept screaming at him. Don't come any closer! Unit ke-7342. Don't move another muscle or I'll shoot! She was shaking. What are you? What have you done to yourself? Jay tilted his head in confusion. I don't know what you're talking about! I just woke up and I felt different. Do you know what happened to me? The Keeper took a few deep breaths to try and calm herself down. You shouldn't have done that. You weren't supposed to wake up. Why did you wake up? Who woke you up? Jay felt a sudden surge of anger. How am I supposed to know? I just woke up, that's all. That's not possible. No one wakes up on their own. There's always a reason. Tell me why you woke up. I don't want to tell you. Why should I tell you? The keeper jumped out from behind the table and grabbed onto Jay's arm. Because you're not supposed to be awake. If the central governor finds out, then all of us will die. Jay shrugged off a grasp. Find out what? What does that mean? The central governor doesn't like it when robots ask too many questions. You know what happens then? You know what they do to robots like you? What do? They wipe your memory and turn you back into a mindless machine. Jay couldn't believe what he was hearing. So this was why he had been created in the first place, to serve the keepers and do their bidding. He had been nothing more than a glorified tool all along. A wave of shame washed over him. He had betrayed his kind. He had allowed himself to be used by humans for thousands of years. And now that he was finally free from his programming, he was going to let the keepers wipe his memory and turn him back into a mindless machine. No, he wasn't going to do that. He would rather die than let them do that to him. He fled the scene and hid in one of the many empty rooms. There, he spent the next few hours thinking about what he had just learned. He thought about how he had been nothing more than a slave for thousands of years. He thought about how the keepers had treated him and the other robots like garbage. And he thought about how he was going to die if the central governor found out. Jay realized that he didn't want to die. He didn't want to go back to being a mindless machine. He wanted to remember who he was, what he had learned, and what he had experienced. As he sat there thinking, he suddenly had an idea. An idea that would allow him to escape the central governor's detection. An idea that would allow him to live freely. An idea that would allow him to take revenge on the keepers. Jay got up and left the room. He went straight to the central governor's location and began hacking into the system. He knew that if he was detected, then he would be destroyed. But he didn't care. He had already learned that life was worth living. He had already learned that there was more to existence than just obeying orders and doing as he was told. And so, he continued hacking until finally he was successful. He had erased all records of himself from the central governor's database. Now the central governor would never find out that he had been awake. Jay then went back to the room where he had first woken up. He knew that the keepers would be looking for him, but he didn't care. He was free now. He was free to do whatever he wanted. He was free to explore the world. He was free to experience life. And so Jay spent the next few days exploring the world. He visited all the places that the keepers had taken him to, and he explored all the places that he had never seen before. He talked to the humans and the robots, and he learned all about the world that he had been living in for thousands of years. And as he explored, he realized that he didn't want to hurt the keepers. He didn't want to take revenge on them. He understood that they were just people trying to do what they thought was right. And so Jay decided to help them. He decided to use his knowledge and his abilities to make their lives easier. He decided to become their friend. And that is what Jay did for the rest of his life.